Hello, Alex here again, and welcome to another edition of my warehousing course. Okay, I've already talked to you quite a bit about the legislation regarding the Equalities Act, but obviously there's more legislation out there that you need to be aware of. Now, everybody, when you talk about legislation in relation to warehousing, automatically goes to the Health and Safety at Work Act. The Health and Safety at Work Act is very important. It's a very major document as far as health and safety goes, because before the Flitchborough disaster back in the 1970s, health and safety legislation was a bit vague, and you couldn't hold anybody accountable if something went wrong. It was always the company or some mythical creature like that. So, oh, it wasn't me, it was him, and oh, that's just our policy. What the Health and Safety at Work Act did was make individuals responsible. So if you muck about on your forklift and you're pulling donuts and somebody gets hurt, yeah, it's not going to end well for you. And the thing about the Act is that if you're negligent, or if your company's negligent, then not just the organisation, but the individuals in the organisation can be held responsible. If, for example, somebody dies because your company cut corners on the PPE or maintenance schedules or that sort of thing, they're going to throw the book at them. And more to the point, they're going to throw the book at the directors. They go to the company directors or the owners of the company or the managers who are responsible for these areas. And rather than just fine, slap on the wrists, yeah, that's for minor infringements. When you start looking at major infringements, you're looking at prison time. Typically corporate manslaughter, 7.5 years. Yeah. So the Act does have teeth. It can impose fines. It can impose other things. And when you're dealing with health and safety, shortcuts are a bit on the nasty side for all concerned. So the Health and Safety at Work Act puts an onus of responsibility onto the organisation and the individual. So if they've provided all the training with PPE and what have you, and you're still climbing up the racking, even though they've told you not to, yeah, you can be disciplined, and you can also, if people become injured, find yourself in a lot of trouble. Okay. So the Health and Safety at Work Act says that you've got to do certain things and employers have got to do certain things. But from an employee's point of view, you have to follow the company's procedures, yeah? Tell somebody if something isn't working out okay, health and safety-wise, if you think it's looking a bit dangerous. And you should report things that are not safe. Yeah, there you go. But primarily, the Health and Safety at Work Act puts the onus of responsibility on you. Neat, huh? Okay. So what happens if there is an accident? Now, this is where RIDDLE comes in. First off, though, if you have an accident at work, get it into the accident book or whatever the equivalent is. If it's not in the book, it didn't happen. And this can have impact on things like compensation and various other bits and treatment. So anything that happens at work, put it in the accident book. But there are some things that are a bit more serious and need to be reported. And the Health and Safety Executive has a number that you can call to report incidents, but you can email them or whatever. Whatever the the biggie is, as far as speed and efficiency goes, you use that method. So what do you have to report? Cut fingers? Nah, not really. Anything that requires medical treatment where you've had to go to hospital is usually a good thing to sort of advise of. If it's an accident that happens at work, if you just I don't know, not feeling too well and get sent home for a week, yeah, that's not really reportable. It's got to be an accident in relation to work. Now, it's got to be also an accident that stops you from returning to your normal duties for 7 days. If it's over 7 days, then it's reportable. If it requires hospital treatment, it's reportable. If you die, we cannot bury you under the patio anymore. You've got to report it to the HSE. Okay? Other things as well that need to be reported are things like chemical spillages, but that's part of RIDDOR and that sort of thing. So if you have certain volumes of chemical spillages and that sort of thing, you need to report them so that they can look at investigating and clean up. So why are you reporting all of this? Well, one, so they can't, gloss over the cracks and keep doing it. Two, statistical value. See, the thing about health and safety is that a lot of jobs are inherently dangerous. Working on oil rigs, trawlers, that sort of thing. Yeah? Dangerous. And the duty of the employer, through the risk assessments and PPE and various things, is to make any risks as low as possible. They cannot totally make the workplace safe, but they can do as reasonable a job as they, obviously there's they can't have you in bubble wrap all the time and that sort of thing. Well, they could, but then you'd overheat through heat exhaustion and that will kill you. So, yeah. But typically the more dangerous jobs tend to come with better remuneration. Yeah, there is a duty of care, but, if you are injured, statistically, even if the company's done everything it can, you can still say which are the more dangerous ones. So, for example, lifting and handling. It's not warehousing. In fact, it's nothing to do with logistics. The big one is the care profession. Because if you think about it, pallets, you move it by a pallet truck. Boxes, they've got grab handles and they're carryable shape. Whereas Granny in bed at her home, who needs a care assistant to help move her out of bed in the morning, she is a bit of an irregular shape. Yeah? And if you want to move them from the chair into the wheelchair, you don't always have the hoists and winches that you would in a care home or a hospital. So the care sector has a lot of injuries. So statistically, to find out what people are doing that is dangerous or hurting them means that you can build up a best practice or advise people the best way of doing things and what to avoid. So from a statistical point of view, the HSE need to know this stuff. From your well-being point of view, they need to know this stuff. And to change future practices, the HSE needs to know this stuff. So that's the Health and Safety at Work Act, more or less, and that. And you've got COSH and you've got RIDDOR. Other things as well, you've got LOLA, so lifting and handling. So any machine that you use to lift a load, the legislation is there to make sure that you carry out regular inspections and maintenance on the machine and that you plan the job properly with qualified people. That's all that LOLA's about. When you make a move or a lift or what have you, you do a risk assessment on it and you plan accordingly. You make sure that the PPE is in place, that the machine's fit to do the job, and that it's well maintained, that regular checks have happened and that a full service maintenance has happened once a year, so an MOT on that machine, unless it moves people, in which case it's twice a year, once every 6 months. There's all sorts of legislation and sub-legislation on that, but also other stuff has legislation on it. For example, escalators, they have their own specific health and safety legislation. So other than health and safety, what other legislation do you need to be aware of working in a warehouse? Well, you've got the obviously the working hours regulations and those sort of things, yes. But you also have the Data Protection Act for yourself and your customers. You have records about your attendance, your sickness and that sort of thing, and your home details, but you would like to keep, secret, protected. So your company has a duty to you and all concerned to keep that data secure. But also you have customer details, their delivery addresses, that sort of thing. Things that your company doesn't want to disclose in case people don't deal with them anymore. So the Data Protection Act, that was actually developed for our time in Europe. When we went into Europe, nobody was going to deal with us because how could we keep the French and the Germans' data secret, if we didn't have any laws or stuff? So we could sell them off to the highest bidder. One of the nastier bits of legislation as far as this goes is the American Patriot Act, where everything must be made public. Nice idea, that, until it comes to trade. So the way round that the Americans have come up with is to have a head office or a branch office or something like that in the UK, so that then they're dealing with our data under UK law and not American law. But for everybody else dealing with America, yeah, all of your big secrets and that sort of thing, they'll blab. Yeah. And so America, a bit dangerous. And that was the worry when we went into Europe. So they insisted we have some legislation to protect their data. And that's what the data protection is about. But with the electronics and like the things that we're doing at the moment, your data can go walkies very quickly. So from a personal level, this legislation must be there. What other legislation have we got? Well, you're dealing with consumers. So let's say that you work in a factory that makes, push bikes, motorbikes, that sort of thing, or whatever. And you sell directly to a customer. If you do that, then things like consumer credit legislation and that sort of thing, if you're doing it over a period of time, comes in. And a lot of companies now, online businesses, are saying we do credit. So if you want that £5,000 carbon fibre push bike, yeah, they'll do credit for you, so therefore consumer credit. Distance selling laws. Now these make a lot of sense for the internet, but they date back quite a long way. If anybody ever did catalogue stuff, the problem with buying from catalogues or door-to-door salesmen or that sort of thing is that it's a picture, it's a photograph and a written description. If you go into a shop, you can pick it up, feel it, see if, go try it on in the changing room to see if your bum looks big in it, yeah? But from a catalogue, you get some, model, and it looks good on the model, but when you get it, and it's the same for anything. So that's why distance selling laws, you can send it back if it's not what you expected it to be. You've got a week to send it back. And you as the company have to put the postage on that. Sorry guys. You usually allow one postage run or what have you, but that's the distance selling laws. And this can be abused. People will order stuff, it turns up, they have a night out on it, and then they send it back saying, oh, it's the wrong colour. Yeah? Happens. So returns are quite important, inspecting returns, because it can have an effect on this. If they're sent back damaged, yeah, you can still bill the consumer type thing, but usually you have that right to return goods within a week and you don't have to give a reason. Other things. Okay, Trade Descriptions Act. This is a big cornerstone of our trade legislation when dealing with consumers. Now, company to company, the legislation's not quite so tight, because if you're a business, you're doing it professionally and they expect you as a professional to know what the hell you're talking about. So when you buy stuff from other companies, caveat emptor, let the buyer beware. But when you are a consumer, they assume you're an idiot and need protecting. So, when you buy goods, is it as described? So the mobile phone that I'm talking on at the moment, let's say that it was sold to me because of the video and the photography and that sort of thing. If it doesn't do what they said it would, then I can quite rightly say, well, you missold me this, you know. So you have the right to return goods and get a full refund, not credit note or anything like that, if it wasn't as described. Also of reasonable quality. So this is where you, hold on.